time that I was really scared was while we were filming that last scene, and I'm behind the bench, and they had a string rigged to the bench so that they could pull it over. And one of the first times we did it, they pulled it too hard, and they pulled the bench like 10 feet away from me. And I must have weighed, I don't know, 40 pounds at the time. And these huge propeller fans are blowing and all this stuff. And I'm literally like holding on to the grass with my hands. And I was like, I'm gonna blow away. That was probably the scariest time.
I have a real quick follow-up. And something that struck me this time, most of the evidence of you fighting monsters is sucked up in the limbo. So do you think that Rudy was arrested for murdering all those people? Because all the cops that would have seen it.
Yeah, no, the bow goes in, like the bow's in limbo, even the truck.
So you think all evidence is gone?
All the evidence is gone.
Because I'm saying because you have that look as a character, like when the cops pull up, you think they come for you. And you're just surrounded by dead vampire women. And you think
well, he did kill his dad, you guys.
I believe that like after, our initial, like our celebration at the end and we're all hugging, I think he fled.
He's an accountant.
Like if they did a sequel, like, Sean's gonna have to like go find him.
You're gonna be like John Rambo, you're gonna be like Thailand or something.
Yeah.
we got some more.
Yeah, there's a few.
Oh God, I don't know who to pick. Someone, you're close to the end.
Hustle. There's a couple in the middle.
We'll get to you. Don't worry.
No.
Hey, you may be the leader of the monster squad. I'm the leader.
No, she hasn't gotten the last like 3.
Oh, it's okay.
I'm right in the middle. Sorry. It's really loud. I just wanted to start off by saying I never realized this before, but watching it on the big screen, I own a comic book store in Orange County, and I always tell people, well, I want it to feel like a clubhouse. And I realized that my comic book store is based on the clubhouse in this movie. And that vibe of all the posters everywhere and how it's set up.
What's it called? Do some promotion.
If you ever want to see a comic book store that looks like the the clubhouse in this movie, it's Comic Book Hideout in Fullerton. But
Comic Book Hideout.
Comic Book Hideout in Fullerton. We love Monster Squad there, so there's lots of homage. But my question is, you said that the actual treehouse is a set, and so you're on a separate place, and they had to build like the shell of it. So what is it like working with that and trying to make it seem real? Like that's the coolest thing for me at watching the movie is these kids are all hanging out, no adult supervision in this really rickety building, like on top of a lake, basically. There's children doing whatever they want because it's the 80s. What was it like working with sets like that and trying to make it real? And
Well, the cool thing about that set was it was, pretty much enclosed within a soundstage. So you'd walk onto the soundstage and it was built in the middle of it. So once you got inside, you were inside of it. And, it was almost magical, like, obviously there was, Bradford Mays in my face, and, everyone's, lighting and all that stuff, and a lot's going on around you, but once the scene starts, and you can, like, kind of, put yourself in it, it was there, you were inside that clubhouse, for sure. It was a pretty good set.
That's a perfect example of how good movies are made to look good. You have great set design and great hands on the set building the stuff to make it, because what I always don't like when you see that looks totally fake. Like the tree in the middle of our treehouse, that's a fake tree in the set, but it looks pretty darn good on screen, and that's because you have really good technical guys making that stuff. And then it's the way you shoot it, and the way you light it, and the way you have it, and it doesn't look chintzy or cheap, it looks real. But when you're used to working on sets and having that piece over here on a soundstage, but you're right, that whole thing was kind of just 3 walls. That thing was almost pretty much constructed just with a 4th wall out, and and then even the door, the trap door, and all that, because it's elevated, so you could come up and pop through it. So it was,
And it smelled like peanut butter because of that dog.
and now we know how the dog got in there.
how does that dog get up there anyway?
How did the dog get out there anyway?
They actually shot that when he was on a pulley thing, and they kind of went up into the treehouse.
That's awesome. Thank you, guys.
Comic Book Hideout, Fullerton.
Yeah, he loves it. kind of laughs at me a little bit. You know, he says, you know, "It's so 80s," you know.
Well, it's because your son's cool like you.
Yeah. My son's pretty awesome. I mean, he's actually in a band called No Parents. If you live in L.A., you might even know them. They're kind of huge, but punk rock band. So he's surpassed my coolness like tenfold. Like he's way in the stratosphere of cool in this city at least. So yeah.
No, it's an interesting question because we do have a length of time that has spanned, and there's been some other generations. And a lot of original first generation Monster Squad fans now have children of their own that many times we go around and say, this is the first movie I let my son or daughter watch, and now they love it. So there's a whole new second generation of Monster Squad fans, and that's connected to the first. So that's why it kind of keeps chugging along, and it means a lot to them too. I've signed just as much stuff or met people who are gone and done appearances where there's a lot of younger kids that really dig it too, and it's because their parents have brought them into kind of that world and showed them something different.
I do movie days with my nephews, and at the time he was 7 when I showed him Monster Squad. He's 8 now, but that was one of the first things we watched and together. And of course, being the owner of the amulet, I blew his mind at the end. But he's totally into it, and I'm like, here, check this out. And he's like, it was the first time something from the screen had kind of crossed over, and he was like, so I have a great iPhone picture. I mean, you guys don't give a shit, but I have a great iPhone picture of him going like. So there you go. That's my story. That's my contribution to that
I
question.
don't think I've ever held the amulet. Give me that thing. No, let me see it.
You got to kill everything. You don't get to hold the amulet too.
Give me the amulet, you. That's pretty bitchin'.
It's really heavy.
Yeah, I know. And sharp. I cut myself when I was pulling
Yes,
it out of my butt earlier.
so sharp.
Yeah. All right.
That got through TSA.
It did.
Like they allowed
But it
it.
won't make it back though, so I'm gonna have to find somebody at the airport. Yeah. Okay.
Hey guys, this question is for Andre. I heard in the 20th anniversary DVD behind the scenes that you originally wanted the role of Rudy. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, it wasn't that I originally wanted the role of Rudy, which is true, but I read for the role of Rudy. So that's how I know Rudy first. And it was just a regular audition, casting, to come in and be requested to read for this movie. And I guess because my body of work kind of leading up to Monster Squad had been sort of the same type of role. Not in this movie, but in the other stuff, I dressed cool and had the cool hair. Then I called, auditioned, called back, screen tested, got cast in the movie, and they called in and said, you've got that movie, Monster Squad, that you read for. I'm like, all right, that's awesome. They go, but not the role you read for. I was like, oh, man. And like, you got cast as Sean, the lead. I was like, oh man, Rudy's the cool guy. But, and I do always say it as a follow-up, no doubt about it that Ryan's a much better Rudy than I would have been as Rudy. And I think everybody ended up exactly where they probably needed to be, because I would have been okay as Rudy, but he was pretty cool. He was pretty cool.
Thanks, guys.
And that does happen sometimes when you read for other roles and get other stuff, and this was just the first time it had happened on that scale for me, so I mention it a lot, because Rudy was cool.
Frankenstein. We're like, oh, wow, man. I said, what happened to your face, man? He goes, well, I slept with my mask on the whole time. When he finally took the mask off, it ripped his lip off, because it basically had grown into him the whole length of the show. And it's a story we still talk about today. Some of the other guys I work with, whenever we see each other. It was just like, Frankie slept with the mask on. It ripped his face off. So anyway, I was going to say about the treehouse too. It was on a 12-foot parallel, and it was like 3 different sections, and it was set up. Partly my dad was a key grip on the show, but also Al Brenner, who was a production designer. It was set up so you could split it in 3 different spots. And do our shooting there. We shot off a little stage crane and all that kind of stuff, and obviously Bradford, did a phenomenal job shooting it. And also wanted to say how professional you guys were as kids, as actors. You don't always get that on shows. And really, every one of them were fantastic and fun and responsible and listened and hit their marks. And It was just a great pleasure and my fond memories. My first big movie as a camera assistant, so I just had to throw my little 2 cents in. Thanks.
Well, thanks, Michael. Appreciate it. Michael May.
I do remember one time in the treehouse with you guys where I was playing dress up with Frankenstein, and Tom kept getting so upset because I kept blocking his view, his face from the camera. Bradford probably remembers that much better than I do. They were like, I don't know what we can do. She's 5. Like, she's just playing dress up.
All right, Mr. in the middle. Poor guy's been sitting there with his hands up for like 20 minutes.
Thanks. My question goes to Ryan. There's a scene, well, there's a couple moments after you kill the vampires and the Wolfman where you're kind of processing what's happening. And I feel like everybody talks about the movie, they talk about how badass that scene is leading into it, but at the end, you're actually processing having killed 4 people. And the look on your face after you stake the first or second one, and then when you deliver your line, only one way to kill a werewolf, you're kind of holding a lot of emotion. I was just wondering, what was your conversation with Fred Decker for those line readings of those scenes, and what was kind of going through your head in terms of what you were trying to portray for what your character was going through?
I don't really remember talking to Fred too much about, line readings and things like that. I think he just kind of let us do whatever choices we wanted to make. I do remember thinking when I read that line that it was an emotional piece. I mean, he did just go through all these things. I mean, my backstory for this character has always been that whatever anyone has what these people have said about him, he killed his dad, he probably has a pretty shitty life. Doesn't have that many friends. I mean, why would somebody that looks that cool and smokes hang out with these nerds? You know what I mean? Because he's a nerd too, and he has got something in him that, he can't let out. And this was kind of his big, sort of moment in life. He mattered. There was something about that what he's been through with these other people, he was in a squad. He was in the club, I don't think he's probably been a squad of 1 his whole life, So I think in that moment that you're saying, I think this was finally just like his breath of fresh air, he's like, I told you, I'm with you guys, there was only one way to kill a werewolf. I was right. And, the flip side of that is that he probably did all this to get laid.
Do you think it worked?
Oh, it worked. There's actually a scene that was cut from, when he puts his arm around, Patrick's sister at the end, and she kind of like gives the eye roll. She goes, so do you still have those pictures? And he goes, yeah, I do. They're at home. And she gives him this weird look, and he goes, under my mattress. And they cut that scene. I don't even know if we shot, I don't remember shooting. I think we shot it. I know it's in the script, but yeah. Rudy, Patrick's sister, it happened.
But did it count?
It still didn't count.
He kicked Steve's ass. That was the end of that.
All right, well, I think that might be a good place to end it. Are you guys going to hang out a little bit and talk to people?
Yeah, I think we're going out here, and if you've got, we'll be out there, take some pictures, sign some stuff, and thank you for coming. Thank you to the Ace Hotel team.